Hey guys, I know I've been MIA for a few days and I have done some vlogs. I haven't been feeling good. Some days are good, some days are bad. It just really depends. I've had some nights where I couldn't sleep. I've been having pain in my bones and intestines feel like somebody's taking a wrench to them, and my stomach is constantly staying bloated. Not eating a whole lot, and when I do, I get extremely bloated, so it's just kind of like it's a turn off on food. So anyway, I have done some vlogs though, and I just haven't uploaded them, transferred them over to my computer and edited it, because editing takes a lot of time. Making the video doesn't, it flies by, but editing takes a lot of time. It's sad that right now we have teachers who have liberal ideas, who are teaching our students, our children, their liberal ways, that are persuading our children to think, to believe in the liberal mind. And that's where we get our millennials. They were taught by these teachers, and it's mostly in the bigger cities. Smaller towns don't really have that problem, but the bigger cities do, and it is a problem because that's where we have the millennials who want to sit here and argue about gun control, about the Constitution, about anything and everything about our history. I don't think they were ever taught what we were taught in school about history. Just listening to a YouTube channel that was a podcast, and their argument that, it was proof enough for me that they obviously either just slept through their entire history class every day, or they weren't taught what we were taught in school. So, that is a problem. And these are supposed to be our future kids, are the same kids that are saying on these podcasts that why do we even need the Constitution? It's so outdated.
But I'm also sick of hearing about the Constitution. Like, goddamn, like 4 people hundreds of years ago wrote it down because they were like, hey, when this country we escaped comes to try and get us back, I want to make sure all the people who live in this little colony we've set up.
Well, it was the Wild fucking West.
I know, this doesn't apply to what we're doing right now. Our population has skyrocketed.
Yes.
We have 10 times as many states and government managing things than you originally planned. So many things have changed since this has happened that it's not like you can just take that as it was written in stone.
And when they came over here from England, that's when they made it up, is our laws. And we still go by them. And that has been the United States history. And the Second Amendment is a part of the Constitution. It is among the Bill of Rights. And these kids don't even know what the Bill of Rights are. And that is the scary part, because it is very obvious that these kids have not been taught what we were taught in school. And, and then you have a kid, that's sitting here and telling you that, there was only 13 colonies, and then we have 10 more. Okay, but there's 50 states. That's only 23. And then griping about his drone not being in the Constitution, and he has to get his drone relicensed every year, and he has to pay for it.
Complaining that we have to spend like $150 every 2 years plus take a 2-hour test just to fly a freaking toy drone around.
Right.
They're
trying
whereas,
to take our drones.
like you really don't have to go through a fraction of that to buy a gun.
No, I mean, you especially don't have to re-get your license every 2 years.
Well, okay, yeah, you don't have to re-get your license because, I mean, you got a gun, it's there, I'm done.
Yeah.
I actually had to go through a full TSA check in order to get my drone license.
Yeah, you don't have to go through a TSA check to get a gun.
No, especially not if you buy them at a gun show.
Really? They have different rules for gun shows?
Yeah,
than
gun
they do for
shows,
gun
it's
stores?
person to person, so you're not going through really
You're
any
totally
checks
right.
at all. You just go and buy.
But yet, we don't have to keep getting our guns re-registered or anything.
And I had a lovely person pop on and comment back to me and let me know that there is no right to fly a drone, but there is a right to bear arms.
And he doesn't understand that, and that's not fair. Well, there is a difference. You have an aircraft, and that's why I try to explain to him. You have an aircraft that can be an invasion of privacy. But then he turned it around on me saying I was paranoid. And no, I'm not paranoid. I'm just making a statement about why you have to be every year, because you actually have an aircraft. I don't care if it's a toy, it's an aircraft. You can go over to your neighbor who might be sunbathing nude, and that's an invasion of privacy. Then he used a paparazzi on me and said, well, I guess you didn't take physics. What does physics have to do with the sound of the, of your drone to the sound of a lawnmower? That has nothing to do with physics. Okay, so anyway, he said, well, I guess you didn't take it. Well, I did take physics, and that has nothing to do with physics. And, so you tried to throw me off with me being paranoid over the drone. So then, my comment back to him was, well, I tell you what, I never really thought about it, but if you were my neighbor, and you came over my land, and you decided you wanted to go, I will shoot you down. Because that's an invasion of privacy. And, so, he's one of these people that will continue to argue and argue and argue. And he did this on his Twitter as well. But whenever I hit him back about, yeah, I took physics, but it looks like you missed history. And when I brought up the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, my Second Amendment, he shut up and did not say anything else.
She was really pointing out the stupidity of the situation, because you have the right to carry something that with the simplest pressure on a trigger can kill 17 people, but not the right to take pictures. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Get that camera out my face. The gun's fine.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
At some point back and forth, we talked about, why we have the Second Amendment, and this person came back and said, perhaps you should learn the history on why we have the Second Amendment. Your gun sense is nonsense? Like, what the hell?
I don't know what hashtag gun sense
the
is,
history
but...
on why we have the Second Amendment, because the British were invading.
Yeah, and people who, have guns and are like, what if someone breaks into my house?
Half the time, they end up shooting a family member. They get panicked, they get worried, they do not have the training, they do not have the test they have to take, they do not have the license, they freak out and they shoot, just like they can't drive and talk on a cell phone at the same time.
And, I was done with that. I said, you know what? Go ride your unicorn, snowflake, goodbye. Because you cannot argue with these people. They will continue on. It's like being in an argument with a brother or sister that just won't shut up, so you just have to leave the room so they'll shut the hell up. So anyway, then we have the kids in Florida who want gun control. And these are millennials as well. These kids don't know anything about what they're talking about. You want stricter laws on background checks? I don't care, that's fine. You want try getting people's psych records attached to their background? That's not gonna happen. And I don't know why people keep thinking that getting psych records attached to your background check is so easy. It's not. Your psych records are very, very hidden. Only a patient can get those records, or you can get those records subpoenaed into court. That's the only way you're going to get psych records. And, and then they want a waiting period. What is a waiting period going to accomplish? When you go to purchase a gun, you give them your driver's license. Your driver's license number is attached to your background check. They associate your driver's license to your background. If you have...
And yet guns are so readily available to people who do not have the education of what to do with them.
Yeah.
And the fact that this lady is sitting here referencing the history lesson, and eventually it descends into even worse, just tells me she does not have the capability to handle that gun.
If you have never done anything, if you have never gotten pulled over on the side of the road for a traffic violation, you won't have anything on it. So, a waiting period is not going to do anything. When they originally run your license, if you have anything on your record that might be questionable, it will flag you. And there is a waiting period. It usually takes about 7 days for the investigation about what's on your background check. And you're either going to be unflagged and, okay, well, really, that wasn't anything, go ahead, or they cannot purchase a gun. So we've already got that in place. If other states don't, well then fine, then they need to get that in place. But here in Kentucky, we already have it. And I even said, well, on a Twitter account, I said, well then let's just mandate that every gun owner has a gun safe. My gun safe requires fingerprints. My husband or I can access it with our fingerprint. So a kid cannot get into our gun safe. We do have a key if for some reason, how those things can be pesky. We cannot get into it, but we have, the fingerprint that, which is what we use, but, we have the backup with the key. So, there are things that can be done without making stricter laws. People are talking about taking semi-automatics away. Well, do people know what semi-automatics are? Because I don't think that they do. President Trump passed a bill or wrote an executive order banning bump stocks. And what those are is to make a assault rifle an automatic. And so an AR-15, people don't understand the AR-15 is not an automatic weapon. It's not. I can go right now and I can go buy one. It's not an automatic weapon. It's a semi-automatic. I have already been through all of the background checks. All I have to do is present my license and I get it that day, right at that moment. Anyway, so he's banned those. So you can't make any weapon an automatic. And most handguns are semi-automatic. The only guns that aren't semi-automatic is a regular shotgun, which you normally put, two bullets in, or wherever they're called, and a revolver. I think they hold, six rounds, and so that's all you're left with. So when people start screaming gun control and wanting to get rid of semi-automatics, they need to get educated, because they don't know what they're talking about. And you talk about semi-automatics, well, that's most of the gun population. And and people use these things for self-defense. Most people have them and have never had to use them, but they're there if they need to. And nobody needs to explain. If you're a law-abiding citizen, nobody needs to explain to anybody why you have one. That is what the Second Amendment's for. And these kids at Parkland went through a very, very traumatic experience. And, my heart goes out to them. But at the same time, stricter gun laws are not going to change anything. They are not going to bring anybody back. It's not going to stop criminals from getting guns. They are going to get guns no matter where they are at. They will buy off the black market. They will get some smuggled in from somewhere. And then you're leaving your law-abiding citizens unarmed. And, that's not a good idea. But people are pushing. And they're saying stricter gun laws won't raise the crime rate. And they call bullshit on it. Well, you know what? What they're saying is bullshit. Because the statistics and all the facts are relevant. And you go into a state that have the stricter gun laws and they have the highest crime. And then you come into some place like Kentucky where over 49% of Kentuckians are gun owners. And the only way they get their statistics is by how many people have gone through the background check to purchase a gun, and how many concealed carriers, because we are not required to register our guns. And so that number is actually pretty low, because we probably have a whole lot more people than that, and we have a low crime rate. But the cities that have strict laws and a very low number of gun owners have the highest crime rates. And, people can argue with me, they can do whatever they want, I don't care, but that is the truth. And disarming Americans is only going to invite other countries over to try to take us over. And that is not something that we want. And the fact that, some of these kids are like, we don't even need these weapons anymore. They're just killing people. Well, you know what? These weapons are what's keeping other countries from coming over here. Because no country wants to come over here, because not only do we have our military, we have Americans that have guns that know how to use them. And if the occasion ever arises that some country decides they want to come over here and they want to try to take over, well, we're going to be out there with our military, and we're going to be right beside them. And if they try to confiscate Americans' guns, it's going to cause a civil war. There's going to be bloodshed. And so that will never happen. First of all, you're going to have to, the country's going to have to come up with the money to pay people to go door to door to gun grab. And we don't have the money for that. You're going to have to, somebody's going to have to come door to door. And who wants to meet somebody at the door to confiscate a weapon knowing that on the other side of the door is going to be some firearms. And all you're doing is, I mean, you're being like a suicide bomber. I mean, you're putting yourself out there door to door to get these guns. Nobody wants that job, and nobody will do it, and nobody's going to do it. So, you know, history repeats itself. And if these kids actually took and had the history classes that we had growing up in school, junior high and high school, they wouldn't have the same feelings. They wouldn't have the same mentality. And that is why I am so sure that these kids didn't have the same history books that we had. You know, and you can even post and show them, you know, Stalin, when he confiscated, when Hitler, and I can't think of the other names, the guy from China, and all these other places, when they confiscated, guess what happened? Millions of people got murdered. When a country goes to confiscate guns, something more sinister is going to happen. You know, people have brought up the fact that some of the senators and government and congressmen have brought up adopting Australia's gun laws. Well, I found this interesting, and it was floating around on Facebook. And so I looked at the year, and so I decided to do a little digging. It took some digging, and what the person had posted was true, and what they had originally done, and this is the same thing that has happened in New Jersey. New Jersey had this, if you're willing to come, give up your firearm, we'll pay you for it. I don't know how much New Jersey offered people for their guns or firearms or whatever. I don't know how much they offered them. I know that they did. They did do this, though. And then they tried to confiscate. Well, that failed. And they also infringed upon the people's Second Amendment rights. Many people didn't turn them in. And they still have them. And they've never enforced that law. You know why? Because then everybody in New Jersey would be criminals. And they don't have the justice system for that. And legally they really can't do that because you're infringing on constitutional rights and the Second Amendment. And, you know, maybe the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and the First Amendment. And anyway, so Australia, they, in 2015, they offered the buyback. You willingly bring your gun, we'll give you X amount of dollars for it, you get paid back. Well, you know what? Here's the problem. You go and you buy a gun. Go buy a handgun. I have a Sig Sauer. They run about $800, depending on which one you're going to get. But they're expensive. They're up there. A Glock, right around $500, $550, $600. Depends on which one you're going to get. Again, so anyway, if you are only offering somebody like $250 for a gun, nobody's going to be willing to give that up. And a lot of people anyway are not going to be willing to give up their firearms. So why would you? That's stupid. That is like your own genocide. I mean, You know, I don't see any reason in it. I don't see any cause for it. I don't see anything. I don't see any, I don't see any benefit in it, except for the country or the state or city or whatever. Anyway, so they did this. Okay, so, you know, the people who were willing to bring their guns and get paid for them brought them. Those who didn't got confiscated. There was something on the end of that came. I don't think that the Australian people had any idea that that was going to happen, because the cover-up was the buyback of the guns. And so that was just like a cover-up, much like Obama having a riot or something go on and him write executive orders. Him trying to block interference when he would do things. And so, you know, when I found this thing on Facebook, it said that the crime rate had doubled. That didn't surprise me, because I have been doing research about, you know, gun ownership, gun rates, gun violence, and all of this, and with the different states. So I tried to search gun crimes, gun violence in Australia in 2016 and 2017. When you do that, you pull it up. Well, you'll see those years, but when you go to the actual sites, there's nothing for 2016, 2017, because there's nothing to report, because they're not reporting anything, because they don't want people to know that their gun confiscation has caused crime rate to skyrocket, because it's not working. And so, you know, you have senators and congressmen who are talking about wanting to do the same thing here in America. Well, I don't remember who he was. I really didn't really pay attention. And actually, you know, I don't even think they even said who he was, because I was trying to see if it was our prime minister or whatever, but I don't think they ever said who he was. They said his name, but I don't remember what it was now. But he said the reason why it wouldn't work in the United States is because, one, we had the U.S. Constitution. Two, we had the Second Amendment rights. Australia, they have no gun rights. So it was easier for them to do it in Australia, but, you know, the Americans have rights to own a gun, and so, you know, it would never work in America. So we even have somebody in Australia who did gun confiscation talking about gun confiscation, doing the same thing Australia did here in the United States. And you know, a lot of people don't know. But, you know, they keep on saying we had X amount of shootings already in the year 2018.
All too familiar sight now across this country. This shooting, by one count, the 18th just this year.
The media loves using this statistic from a gun control group, Everytown for Gun Safety, on 18 school shootings in America this year. What they don't want to discuss is that a visit to Everytown for Gun Safety's website shows that its 18 school shooting incidents include things like gun fired into floor, no one injured. A school liaison officer sitting on a bench when a third grader presses the trigger on the officer's holstered weapon, causing it to fire and struck the floor. A man pulls into a closed school's parking lot and commits suicide. Gunshots, likely from off campus, hit a window. A criminal justice student picked up a weapon that they thought was an unloaded training weapon and then shoots at a wall target, unintentionally firing a bullet which went through the wall and broke a window. Most of the others on this list involve altercations between students involving guns, but do not end in fatalities. Of the 18 school shootings listed, only 3, including the recent school shooting in Florida, involved gunmen entering a school building and firing. And while school shootings are an important issue for the media to address, it's also important to address it using facts and not a deceptive agenda.
There have already been 18 school shootings. There were 7 by this time last year.
What they're not telling you is a guns went off in somebody's holster, a gun went off on the ground, a gun, an officer's gun went off, they're not telling you that it's not homicide. They're not telling you it's not a crime. They're not telling you these things. They're just wanting you to know that these are guns that these are just guns. These are shootings, and it's not. The only one we have had is the Parkland, and people want to keep on blaming the guns, and it's not the guns. It is the person behind the gun. And if you want to blame somebody, blame the FBI. The last 5 shootings could have been prevented had the FBI done their job. They have been tipped off and they have ignored it. If they would have ignored it the first time, okay. Second time, this is becoming a routine here, you guys. By the third one, they should already be picking up on saying, look, we are getting these. We need to start paying attention. We need to start doing something about it. But they're not. So, doing things to limit firearms from law-abiding citizens is not the answer. Like I said, you want to do stronger, stricter background checks, go for it. I don't understand. I don't see a point in waiting periods. That happens anyways if there's a red flag in a background check. Mandating gun owners to have a gun safe. There are things that you can write into law without it invading and infringing on anybody's Second Amendment rights, but it doesn't have to be appealing, as some people like to call the Second Amendment right. What is so bothersome is that, we know what the tough reality of, gun ownership and having those rights stripped or made stricter or whatever, and but we have gone through history and we know that history repeats itself. And if you haven't learned from Hitler or Stalin or any of the others by now, then you're never going to figure it out. And that is why it's important that that the kids in schools know the American history, because then they won't be so quick to want to change the Second Amendment. George Soros. Obama wanted to change and take the Holocaust out of the history books. And I don't know if he actually, and I'm sure he probably did, because kids don't know anything now. So, but he wanted the Holocaust out of the history books. There are two reasons behind that. But the second reason, I don't ever remember learning that in school. I learned that on my own. But the first one was floating around, and then I did some backup checking and fact checking, and well, I have this in another vlog, and I will attach it to this one. But George Soros, who has put millions of dollars into Obama's campaigns for presidency and when he ran for Illinois Senate, also was a Jew, is a Jew, whose parents were wealthy and paid for his family. His dad paid for his family to have their identities changed to Christian. And so George Soros worked with, he pretended to be the godson of somebody else who was married to a Jew. And he went around and helped collect the Jews' possessions. And, you know, it's a whole interview with George Soros. You know, he was a young kid. He was 13, 14 years old. And, you know, you can kind of overlook a kid at that age. But when they say that they have no regrets, it was the best time of their lives, then you know what? I don't feel sorry for you. And so George Soros helped get the possessions from other Jews. And his whole thing was, well, if it hadn't been me, it'd been somebody else. Okay, well, there you go. And then with some more digging, there was the Muslim Brotherhood. Hitler funded the Muslim Brotherhood that Obama is also a part of. He is a brother of the Muslim Brotherhood. And Hitler funded them during World War II, and since he funded them, the Muslim Brotherhood fought side by side. Well, see, this is where Obama gets so messed up, because he's got such a web of lies that he says that the Muslims helped build America. No, they didn't. But that's what he has in his mind. And so that is the reason why Obama didn't want the Holocaust in our history books. And George Soros is the man behind Obama. Obama is nothing more than George Soros' puppet. And, you know, George Soros says that, America was just a civilized, culture, and we were an experiment. It didn't work, but it was fun. He loved doing it. But even he couldn't break America. So, but that was the agenda. That was why Obama kept trying so hard to make stricter gun control, talking about confiscation, and he was sending firearms to ISIS and telling ISIS every time we were gonna hit. And you know what? We don't have that problem anymore. And this is why, part of the reason why these kids don't know anything about our history, because a big part of it's been removed. And these kids need to be educated. If they knew our history, then maybe they wouldn't be so quick to jump on gun control. And yes, we all always jump on our Second Amendment, because as soon as something happens, people want gun control. And then they start attacking the Second Amendment. You can't attack something that is the right of a law-abiding citizen. Sorry. That's my right. And, like I keep saying, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy one. Don't ask somebody to help you that has one. And God forbid, if your house is getting broken into and your neighbor owns a gun, don't ask them for help. I mean, if you're so dead set against it, just move on. And, people have guns for many reasons. People like to do it for sport. Some people do it for recreation. Some people just have it for self-defense. I mean, when my husband and I, we go down to his sister. She lives out in the boondocks, and we have targets that we bought. I don't know, like $1 a piece, and cans and all that. And we go out there and we shoot our guns. I mean, we're not shooting people. We're out there shooting guns. And there's a firing range here that's used to be part of Fort Knox that has a nice gun range. And it's an outdoor gun range. It's $10 a piece for the whole day. And, if it's a beautiful day, you can spend a lot of money in ammunition, though. But we have indoor firing ranges here in Louisville. It's up to what the person wants. This is the reason why the Second Amendment was in place, to protect us from our own government. And if our own citizens are going to be against it, it makes you question what this world is coming to. Because, if you are ignorant about the Constitution, if you are ignorant about, because you don't even know what the Bill of Rights are, when it's part of the Constitution. People need gun sense. They need common sense. They need to learn. They need to quit talking before they learn. They need to quit talking until they learn about guns. They need to educate themselves. They need to educate themselves about our history. If somebody comes to our door, I mean, it's a God's honest truth. It's going to cause a civil war. It will. And, it's sad, but it's the truth. And I just know that if you guys just keep talking about this bullshit, that, you're infringing on my Second Amendment right, and I am free to have that Second Amendment right. The forefathers gave us this Constitution. They gave us the Second Amendment right because of this particular reason. So just because you don't like it doesn't mean that everybody else has to be with you. Don't buy one. That's all I got to say to you. Well, that's it. I'm done. I'll see you guys tomorrow.